chapter number 3, and now we look at the product supply. So we are saying the agriculture sector should provide a growing surplus of agricultural products because of the following reasons. Number one, the agriculture sector should provide a growing surplus of agricultural products to increase food supplies and agricultural raw materials at low prices, to increase the purchasing power of farmers and hence the domestic market for non-agricultural products in the rural sector, to facilitate transfers of labor and other resources from agriculture for industrial development, to increase foreign exchange earnings from agricultural exports. The contribution which the agriculture sector can make in these areas will depend on the responsiveness of the domestic producers to economic incentives and to price signals in particular. Now, some supply theories are discussed here. The market supply of the product will heavily depend on the price of the commodity, number one, the price of other commodities which could be produced, that is the opportunity cost now. So the price of that commodity they're producing and the price of the other commodity that they could produce, and the price of inputs in the production process. So three things: price in the production process, the price of the inputs, the price of the commodity, and the price of the other commodity that they could have produced. An increase in the price of a product will encourage producers basically to produce a larger quantity. Usually, the responsiveness on the producers to price changes. This one is basically known as the on-price elasticity of supply. Actually, this is so critical and fundamental. Okay, so an increase in the price of a competing product reduces the supply, of the product at each market price. This is called the cross-price elasticity of supply. Other important parameters in the supply function are the prices of the joint products. Let's say you're keeping cattle for beef and the leather. The state of technology, that is improvement in technology. Okay, these are some of the important parameters affecting the supply. The natural environment, that is weather conditions, outbreaks of diseases, and the institution setting, that is the influence of the government intervention on the input prices and new technology provided. So there is basically now a need for dynamic specification. Agricultural output will be subject to a number of climatic and biological factors outside the control of the farmer. Product prices are not actually known with a certainty at planting time, and with this, when the breeding plans are made, what we usually find is that the farmers must take these production decisions on the basis of an expected or predicted product price. So they have to make the decisions based on some expected or some predicted product price. The farmers will not be able or will not be willing to adjust their production activities instantaneously and in response to market stimuli. So the farmers will not be able to adjust their production activities instantaneously in response to the market stimulus. But what would be causing the farmers not to adjust instantaneously? The following are the reasons. Number one, it could be as a result of some psychological resistance to change that is cost and time involved. It could be as a result of the institutional factors such as the infrastructure or access to or the availability of credit. The technical characteristics of the agricultural production may constrain the process of adjustment in the short run. That is to say, for example, the time to get first harvest or to breed an animal, that the technical characteristics of the agricultural production may really constrain the process of adjustment in the short run. Now, interestingly enough, it is to learn that there is this interesting debate. Let's start with this point. The responsiveness of the farmer to economic incentives will determine to a large degree, the contributions of the agriculture sector to economic growth. How a farmer responds to economic incentives, this is what is largely going to influence the contribution of the agriculture sector to the economic growth, the cost and the benefits of government intervention in the sector. Okay. Some argue for a free market because the government policy is biased against agriculture by keeping prices low. But others can still argue that the supply response may be perverse, or that is to say, a higher price induces lower output. So you will see that farmers in developing countries have a target cash income, and if the prices were higher, they can attain this income level with a reduced supply. So to set low prices would really encourage these guys to produce more of that product, hence increasing the supply of that particular commodity with a target to actually get what they want. What about the competitiveness model of input demand? The demand for input is actually a derived demand. This is what we are saying. So the demand for inputs is basically a derived demand. It's not really that the inputs have got their own demand, but they are basically a derived demand coming from somewhere. Competitive firms that employ only one variable input, let's say fertilizer, they aim to maximize profits, and therefore they need to know how much of the fertilizer to use, the value of the marginal product of that same particular input, that is to say fertilizer. So the price of the fertilizer, they also need to get that. Can we quickly look at the value of the marginal product? Okay, so the value marginal product of fertilizer shall be equal to the price times the marginal product of fertilizer, where P is the price of the final product, and this basically represents the addition to total revenue, which an addition unit of fertilizer would contribute. So the representation of the additional revenue, total revenue, which is as a result of an additional unit of fertilizer, is what is called the marginal product, of fertilizer. And the extra unit would actually increase total output, and this extra product could be sold at the current commodity price. We're saying that the increase in total output and can be caused by the extra unit, and this extra product could be sold at the current commodity price. So the increase in the firm's total cost by augmenting the fertilizer bill by the unit price of the fertilizer. So the firm will hire a factor as long as it adds more to total revenue than the total cost. In equilibrium, the last unit of the variable input will contribute just as much. So let's look at the mechanism now. The mechanism, the fall in the price of inputs. So all firms are encouraged to employ more of that resource and to expand output. When aggregate production increases, the price of the final product will fall. Okay, as aggregate production increases, then the price of that final product will basically fall because we expect too much supply to the market. And this in turn will decrease the value marginal product of the input, and each firm demands a schedule for the inputs will shift to the left. So we are saying that when aggregate production increases, the price of the final product will fall, and this in turn will decrease the value marginal product of the input. Okay, the value would decline, and each firm's demand schedule for the input will shift actually to the left. Each firm's demand schedule for the input will basically shift to the left. This is because of the decrease in the value marginal product of that particular input. Now, let's try to look at this diagrammatically. At the initial input price P0, the individual firm employs the F0 of the fertilizer at that point. And when the input price falls to P1, this firm and all other firms in the industry will seek to expand usage of fertilizer because it's become cheaper now. Now, the resultant increase in output by all firms will lower the market price of the product. In line with the decrease in the value marginal product, the firm's demand curve for fertilizer will shift downward to the left under the new input price. Each firm will now employ F prime. They will employ F prime. At the industry level, let's try to view this at the industry level. We'll try to look at this at the industry level. Total usage at the initial fertilizer price would be actually FO. Now, being the summation over all firms of their usage level FO. Now, at the lower price, P1, industry's usage would be F. It would be F prime, which is basically the summation of the final firm's level usage level. Let's look at the determinants of the demand for an input. We said the demand for input is determined by the price of the input, the price of the final product, and the marginal product of the input. Thank you so much for listening to